Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of Recovery in 20. Today I'm joined by Walker Mondok. She works here at Aspen Ridge Recovery with me. We're both members of the LGBTQ plus community, so we thought we'd kind of talk about some issues that are specific to us and our community in recovery. Thanks for coming.
No problemo.
So, figured we'd probably just first start with the facts about LGBTQ substance use. I did some research to do this show, and they're a bit startling. I should preface this with that it's difficult to pinpoint exact numbers due to a variety of reasons, including, trying to survey people who are considered out, people who are in the closet, and there's all sorts of variances of what exactly LGBTQ means. And there are lots of studies about gay men. There are not a lot of studies about lesbian and transgender community.
Oh, interesting. What's that about?
Science, medicine, just doing research on white men. Who would have thought?
Oh, that's so unusual
Yeah.
and surprising. Also, the National Association of Alcoholism Counselors and Trainers have estimated that 30% of LGBTQ plus individuals suffer from some form of addiction, as opposed to the 9% in the general population. I just read that before doing this, and I'm like, what is this? Is this real? Where is this from? That's crazy. That's 3 times.
It's from the National Association of Alcoholism Counselors and Trainers. It's super official. That's an insane number. 30%.
Yes.
Is so high.
Yeah, that is a large amount.
And just one more quick fact, there's been some recent research that shows that the LGBTQ community tends to develop these problems a little bit later in life versus our heterosexual counterparts. So probably we were just hypothesizing dealing with some repressed trauma a little bit later in life.
Yeah, I was like, wait, why later? But yeah, sometimes, it's a journey for a lot of people, and most people don't figure it out in middle school, high school, college. Some people figure that kind of thing out way later. So that makes sense.
You'd think, just anecdotally, you'd think that, with the way things have changed in the past 20 years, people would be doing it younger and younger, and there definitely is some of that, but I meet so many people who are like, oh, I came out at 23, 24 on a regular basis, and I'm always super surprised to hear that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common still, especially the kind of conversations you get into as someone in the LGBTQ plus community. People tend to open up and can kind of explain their vulnerable experiences, and I find the same things true. Some people get married and have kids and then figure it out, and there's a lot of stories out there like that.
Things are changing, but still not quite fast enough, I don't think. So we've talked about the statistics. Why? What's the why? Why are 30% of the LGBTQ plus community turning to alcohol and drugs? I've identified 3 primary reasons, and the first one is going to be pretty obvious. It's socialization. I know in the gay men community, the bar and club scene is huge. From 18 to 22 or 23, I think I was out every weekend, maybe missed 2 in that 3-4 year period. It was where you went to make friends. This was, I don't want to date myself too much, but this was a pre-iPhone, an app. So these were the places where you go to meet. This was basically it. There weren't really, if there were online options, I wasn't aware of them at the time. And even with the apps, I'm sure some of you are on them. The first question I'm always asked is, hey, do you want to go grab a drink? It's that ingrained that very rarely does someone ask, do you want to grab a coffee or a tea? It's always, do you want to grab an alcoholic beverage with me? Which is not a really awkward conversation. I'm very open about recovery. I think that should be pretty obvious if we're doing a live event on Facebook right now to a bunch of people. But yeah, it's just ingrained. It's the default social setting for gay men, at least. Are the bars as big in the lesbian community?
I don't know. I guess in my personal experience, that's not where I would really be going. It would be more events based, but still alcohol would be be like a common factor in all of those. So, I mean, I've gone to gaming events, but again, that's like still gonna be a lot of alcohol and weed around. And then shows was a big thing. So going to live music, I kind of, I played shows and I'm a musician, and so I would go to friends' shows and people would come to mine, and that was, in the Bay Area, so in Gainesville, Florida, and that's still a very alcohol, drug heavy event. So wasn't so much bars. I haven't ever had a lot of luck at the bars. I don't think I would. I think that drinking kind of, for me, I know it wasn't like game oriented while drinking.
It doesn't have to be sloppy.
Yeah, exactly. It's not how it works for me. So I mean, I was more into like shows and just gaming events or outdoor events, just meetups type of thing.
Another thing that came up when I was doing research was circuit parties, and I'm clearly not cool. I have no idea what a circuit party was. I had never heard that terminology. It's like a rave, one of those big. Okay, you didn't know either. Good. I was like, what is a circuit party? I've actually never been to those. I do know lots of people that have, and those tend to be very, stereotypical drug and alcohol events. I also discovered doing the research that substances are highly marketed and advertised to our community. So you can pick up, copy of the Advocate or any of those magazines, and they're all booze ads. Every last one of them is an ad for alcohol. So the people who make these substances are aware that we are ripe for the picking and susceptible to such marketing techniques. Compared to the heterosexual community, where it's estimated about 10 to 20% of the population abuses alcohol, it's 25% for our community, and that's just speaking about alcohol, so only slightly lower than that 30% statistics. Another area we wanted to talk about was a bit more systemic, and those are deficiencies in the healthcare system.
Yeah, wow, that's a big one. The research shows that gay and lesbian individuals are 2 times as likely to not have health care compared to those in the general population, and transgender individuals are even more likely to not be covered by health care. And this is like kind of a big one for me because I have spent times, struggling with mental health, had some really intense trauma, and it just kind of left me very dysfunctional, and I couldn't hold a job, and I was homeless at a time, and I had no healthcare coverage for the better part of the last decade. So I remember one point I was homeless and sitting on a park bench with a sign, and a guy came up to me and he was like, "What is a pretty girl like you doing homeless?" And I thought, what in the world does being like a pretty woman have anything to do with homelessness and healthcare coverage? And I realized, like, had I been a straight cis woman who's attractive, I had a lot more potential to find some dude to hang out with or shack up with, or who knows, just to survive a little easier. And I had never thought about that previous to that. And then the other relationships I was also in was people who were largely low income as well, and there was no huge benefit for us combining in finances or things like that. So it's kind of crazy. I feel like I've definitely lived part of that statistic.
That's a good segue into the next topic. One of the reasons why is social prejudices. And up until last June, it was still legally permissible to fire someone for being gay in 27 states. That's not even been a year that's prohibited now. And it ties right into healthcare. If you work at, I don't want to slam any brands, but a restaurant who's very family friendly, I think they would market themselves. You're still, you could still get fired for working for this company, and you lose your health insurance, and you lose your access, and it's just so important that the Supreme Court did recognize that it's not okay to fire someone because of their sexuality or gender identity. But it's such a new thing that I'm sure this is still impacting people out there.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. I recall having a couple run-ins with some places I had worked, and I had one place I was hired as a sous chef, and the chef would take me out every night with the whole team, and we'd hang out, and there was drinking, and then he started kind of just being a creepy dude, and I totally publicly turned him down, and then also explained that like I didn't like men, and everyone cracked up and threw it in his face, and kind of made a bunch of jokes out of it, but more geared towards him. And the next day I showed up, and he was like, hey, you don't have the knife skills, and you don't have the skills we're looking for, and I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And I was just like, oh man, I feel like this outcome would have been different, just if my sexuality was different. Even turning him down straight, I think it wouldn't have resulted in the same outcome. So it's kind of a rather unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think it's probably safe to assume that any company that's gonna, no matter the size, that's gonna fire someone because of their sexuality is gonna say it's because of their knife skills or because of
it's
what.
Because of my knife skills, which were totally fine before that.
Yeah, so I'm sure it's kind of danced around a bit. I don't think any companies are stupid enough to say your lifestyle choices disagree with our company mission and values and stuff. So
right, it's always the knife skills.
So one of the other stats I found really shocking doing the research for this was that 90% of transgender individuals have experienced discrimination at their job. I mean, it sounds, yes, I could definitely see that happening, but 90% is such an absurdly high number, and considering it's 2021, in the past few years, there's definitely been more of an emphasis on trans rights. Now that, gay marriage is legal, don't ask, don't tell is not a thing anymore, and it feels like, things are not perfect, but we've definitely made significant strides towards equality in the past 20 years. That this is kind of one of the last frontiers, if you will, of civil rights is the trans community, and just getting fired for your job and losing your health care coverage, and the trans community is subject to so much bullying and just a lack of understanding. I think that years and years of trauma definitely plays into a turn to substances. I know for me, at least on the gay side of it, I can remember being, I came out at 17, but before that I had discovered alcohol and drugs because I lived in a small podunk town in Michigan, sort of a rural community, and it was not nearly as tolerant as some of the surrounding towns like Ann Arbor, and it was just a different time. We're talking early 2000s. This is before, Will and Grace or Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. The original one was on. Bravo. So, and I found, anti-anxiety medication took away a lot of that stress, and then you mix them with alcohol, and there's no stress, and that's initially what led me to turn to substances, was just terrified of being who I am openly. And, it started off recreationally, but definitely as a coping tool. And then, it's a slippery slope. And then eventually, my hardwired addiction genes the switches got flipped, and that led to, off to the races for years and years and years. But if I had to trace it back to one specific cause, I think that would probably be it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I had a rather, I had sort of a Christian upbringing, and when I discovered that I did like women and I was very involved with church, those two things in the early 2000s, did not mix, and there was just no comfortability or feeling of safety about telling anybody that, or there was no one to even talk to that I knew that had. I didn't know any gay people. Like, I had no idea what was happening, or how, if what I was feeling is normal, or what to do in my specific situation. And that was around the same time in which I had first initially, started abusing alcohol, and just really not, there was so much anxiety and emotion there, and the only thing to really like help with that was alcohol and weed, really. And it's just like, with I kind of wonder like what it would have been like had I had known of any resources in that pivotal, fork in the road. Like if there was some sort of LGBTQ plus center, if I knew a hotline, if I knew any of that, like what would that outcome have looked like, rather than what it turned out to be. So
I have to wonder the same thing if I had access to anything, a group of gay mentors, if you want to, at some community center in Ann Arbor, or anything like that. How would have things shaken out differently? Important not to dwell on it, but it is just a genuine curiosity of how would that flip have gotten switched. It was just, the stigma with being gay back then. It was, I could drink a fifth of vodka or whiskey or whatever it was and smoke a bunch of weed, and I could just forget about it for a few hours. This, crippling anxiety that, was inside me for most of the day, and that's why I love substances. They took that away for the short amount of time that I was using them.
Yeah, I think I felt, definitely a big piece of that is, I definitely did go a big chunk of time with not abusing anything, and a lot of those times when I look at them, I had a great community. I had ended up moving out to the Bay Area, spending time in Gainesville, Florida, and for the most part, whenever I could find my people, whether that's, they're either LGBTQ plus themselves or allies, whenever I could find that community and find mental health resources and be in a non-toxic, intimate relationship, I think I've always seen much better success, and so now, like, I don't know about you, but I like to move forward with trying to be, the safe person for people to come to and ask questions. And man, I've gotten lots of weird questions, but I appreciate it.
No, I try to do the same thing in the 12-step rooms. I meet people who are there's one guy who's kind of he's pretty sure he's non-binary and stuff, and I just make myself available to these people. Whatever you need, if you ever need to call and talk about anything like sobriety related, sexuality related, just let me know. More than willing to help out.
Yeah.
I did want to touch on, before we go, speaking of resources, some resources for the LGBTQ community. If you might be struggling with drugs or alcohol, you can obviously look for some 12-step fellowships. This could be AA, NA, CA, HA. There are LGBTQ-specific meetings for this. You can check out the Boulder Valley AA website. There's a couple gay meetings that are held. They were held in person at Out Boulder, which is a great organization. You can look them up for some resources. Also at the Center on Colfax in Denver. It's kind of like the LGBT community hub of Denver. They do host a couple, I know they host some AA and NA meetings there. And it can be helpful just to be around people with similar traumatic experiences as you, people with the same coming out stories. It definitely helps to be in a room with people who know what you're going through And if you add on the substance abuse with the sexuality, it's like you're walking into a room, you don't even know them, and you've got so many shared experiences. It's pretty comforting. You don't have to just stick to a 12-step program. You can check out Smart Recovery, Recovery Dharma. You can check out last week's episodes where we touched on some of the non-12-step related pathways to recovery. You can always get treatment. I know I tried the 12-step meetings on my own and it wasn't enough. I needed to get treatment. So if you're going to look for a facility, definitely look on their website, see if they have a specific page that mentions the LGBTQ plus community. Make sure you're dealing with an organization that is friendly. There are some that are not, and just if they call that out on their website, you can safely assume that it's probably a priority of theirs to make a safe space for gay and trans folks. You also would be important to check out for a center that treats dual diagnosis, or sometimes called co-occurring disorders. So a lot of times, depression, anxiety, trauma, those accompany the substance abuse. So you want to look for a treatment center that's going to treat all of these things alongside with the addiction to get you put it on the best firm, solid ground to, once you're done, just continue living a clean and sober life. I would also check out and make sure that the therapists have experience with trauma, if that's something that's important to you. If you came from a Christian home and your family wasn't as accepting as others, definitely look at it finding someone who has experience with those topics. Finding someone that knows you and the community well. Segue into a shameless plug for Aspen Ridge Recovery. We are an LGBTQ plus friendly treatment center. You can check out more information on our website about our treatment programs and what specifically we can do for you or a loved one. And I just want to thank Walker for taking time out of her busy day to sit down with me for this. Be sure to join us next week for Recovery in 20. We'll be talking about the opioid epidemic, who's to blame, and what we all need to do to deal with it. Invite your friends, like this, share these links if you enjoyed it. We will post this video to our Instagram feed as well this evening. Be sure to like us on there. And if you are someone who needs help with addiction, mental health, or trauma, please visit AspenRidgeRecovery.com, or you can give us a call anytime at 855-281-5588. We do accept all major insurance. Thanks for being here.